Everyone, quick video. You'll notice that the picture's a little grainy. I apologize. I got a new laptop and I'm just using the built-in camera for that. But because I have a brand new laptop, this is a great opportunity, I think, to show everyone a quick tutorial on how to install Python, NodeJS, Git, and VS Code on your machine. You might have some of these already on there, and I'll take you through each one in what I think is a logical order. But if you have already done one of these as I'm going through the steps, then don't worry about it. Just be patient, fast forward to the next step. And also the purpose of this video is not necessarily to explain ad nauseum what each one of these does. We're just going to install it. And then we'll take opportunities in other classes and other tutorials to explain what they do. Okay, the order in which we're going to install these is going to be Python first, and then Node.js. Then we'll install Visual Studio Code, and then we'll install Git. So first we're going to type in Python. That should take us to the main page, which is python.org. And we'll go to downloads, and it probably detected that I have a Windows machine, so it says download for Windows. I'm sure if you're on a Mac, it'll say download for Mac or Apple or whatever. Let's see what happens if I just do all releases, download Python. Look, so you'll have your choices here. So in any case, we'll want to go to this one. And while I'm filming this, the current most up-to-date release is 3.10.6. So I'm going to go ahead and download that. Okay, it's finished downloading. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we'll go ahead and do install now. We'll go ahead and do install launcher for all users. And for Windows, Python for Windows, I'm going to make sure and click this one, add Python 3.10 to path. If you forget to do that, I'll show you after we're done how you would fix that. But the problem is if you don't have the Python directory added to your path, it just makes things a little bit more difficult to work with. So anyway, we'll want to make sure and do that. And I will go ahead, and there's this customize install. I just end up going with all the defaults anyway. So I'm going to click install now. And I don't know if you noticed that, but as soon as I clicked install, I got the little Windows pop-up saying that it's asking to install something, and do you really want to install? And I just clicked yes. Okay, there we go. Setup was successful, and disable path length limit, change your machine configuration to allow programs, including Python, to bypass the 260 character max path limit. I'm going to click yes because I've run into the problem before where I have files deep into directories and then it hits that max. So you don't have to do it, but may as well. I'm going to click that. It's going to give me that warning again. It's going to say, do you want this to be able to modify your device? And I said yes. Okay, setup was successful. Let me hit close. All right, so the first thing I'll show you is concerning this path thing. If I go ahead and I open a command prompt right here, in theory, usually I should be able to type in Python --version and get the current version. We'll see what happens. Oh, good. Okay, so it was added to the path and it's current. This is good. It means I don't have to reboot my machine. On other machines, I've had to update the path and I've had to reboot it. So, all right, we're good. Do another check, little sanity check to make sure we have Python. If I go down here and type idle, I should now have an app called idle. And if I click on it, it comes up. It also kind of looks like a command window. It's an idle shell, but here I can run Python inline. So I can say print quote hello, close quote, close paren, and it prints hello. Very cool. I can do a math problem. I can say 9 divided by 7 plus 3, and I can hit return and it will output the result there for me. Okay, so we know we have Python on. Good. Let us now do NodeJS. Just going to type in NodeJS. There we go. So the site for this is nodejs.org. Download for Windows. I'm going to go with LTS. This is the supported version recommended for most users. I consider myself most users. I'm going to download this. Take a few seconds. All right, I get this right here. Wizard will install node.js on your computer. I accept the terms. I'm going to just go with the default. I'll go with the defaults here. I'm not going to worry about this. I really haven't used any NPM modules that have been in other languages. So I'm just going to skip that. Ready to install. Again, it'll give me the little warning. Do you want to let this app have access to your device? I click yes, and it's going through the setup. For a little sanity check, we'll go ahead and open command. Keeps opening on my other monitor. And we will type in node and then dash minus minus version. There we go. So it's recognizing the path and everything. Another little thing like we did with idle, we can just type node and we get this little app over here. It looks pretty much like command window, but we're running in node. So I can say console.log hello world, close and close, and there we go, hello world. Okay, so we've got Node running and we have Python running. Awesome. Check. Next, we're going to do Visual Studio Code, VS Code. And there's a little confusion sometimes because there's two things called Visual Studio and they both come out of Microsoft. So let's take a look first at the one we are not going to download. The URL will be visualstudio.microsoft.com. You'll see meet the Visual Studio family. You have Visual Studio for Mac, and then we have Visual Studio Code. Okay, Visual Studio is an IDE, and it's really geared toward those who are going to do Windows development. Visual Studio Code is for everybody, and it's becoming kind of the favorite code editor IDE for even open source, even people who use Linux like to use VS Code now. So it's got a lot of popularity and it runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac. So we'll go ahead and we can install it from there. Or if you type in VS Code, it should have its own page. And there we go. So code.visualstudio.com, this is the one we want. And if we go up here, we just click on the download and you can choose which one. If you're on Windows, of course you do that, Linux or Mac. I'm going to do Windows and I'm going to download it. This download is kind of more on the large side, so it might take a few minutes. Okay, it's done downloading. I'll open it up and we'll walk through the install for this. We'll do our agreements. I accept. I'll just accept the default. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to leave these as default, these bottom two checked. You can, if you want a desktop icon, you can do that. Next, install. All right, this might take a few minutes. Okay, it's actually pretty quick. We'll go ahead and let it launch. All right. What I'm going to do before I start working on this, I'm going to go to a file explorer. I'm going to go to my C drive. And what I usually like to do is right here at the root, I create a folder and I'm going to call it Git. And this is where my repositories will be. And this first one, I'm going to navigate in there. I'm going to create another folder. I'm just going to call this test, and it's going to be empty, but I am now going to go in here in VS Code, and where it says open folder, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go to C Git test and select that folder. Do you trust the author? Yes, I do. Trust. Okay. And right now this test, that's that folder I'm working in. And I'm going to add a file called main.py. And the py is a Python extension. I'm going to write a quick little Python, real quick app so we can make sure this is working. But as you noticed, as soon as I put the .py down here, it noticed that I have a py extension for Python. It says, do you want to install the recommended extensions for Python? The answer is yes, heck yes, install. So it brings me to this page that explains kind of what it's doing and what these extensions are going to help me to do. And you'll notice right here it says installing. We're just waiting for it to be done. All right, while it was installing, I got the little, for me, a little Windows Defender firewall alert. I'm going to go ahead and say allow access. And there we go. Now I look over here, it says, and I was clicking around a little bit. I clicked back down to extensions and it says it's install. And whereas it said installing, now it says uninstall. Don't want to click that, undo everything I did. I don't want to do that. So now I'm just going to go back up to Explore and I'm going to double click on main PY. And I'm going to close this. And I'm just going to type print hello. And now to run it, if you're used to replit, we have a big green start button and then we'd hit that and then it would display the results here. This is going to be a little bit different, not quite as user-friendly. We're going to go to terminal, new terminal, and down here I want to make sure I'm on terminal. And this is the directory I'm in. Remember, I was at the root C and then git and then test. And in here, I'm going to type the word Python and I want Python to run main.py. This is that right now. Oh yeah, and notice how it has a white dot. That means I haven't saved the file yet. So I'm going to do Control S. There we go. Now the white dot disappeared and it's an X and this has been saved. So I go down here, I hit enter, and okay, so this is that problem that I'd run into before. Found if I closed it and opened it back up, and we have this print hello when this terminal comes up. Now if I do Python version, it does find Python, and if I hit Python and then main.py, it runs this and it prints hello. So we're fine. So the next thing we want to do is install Git. So we'll do Git, not GitHub, we'll just do Git. We'll go here, the site is git-scm.com. We'll go to downloads, and for me, I'll do Windows, and then I'll click here to download. I'll go ahead and run it. I'll double click. It gives me the do you really want to install. I'll do GNU general public license. Leave all these default options. There'll be a whole string of other options. Just always choose the default. When it gets here, it will probably default to Vim, but now that we have Visual Studio Code installed, go ahead and choose Visual Studio Code as Git's default editor. The next button is enabled. If you didn't have it, it would be disabled. So we'll click next. We'll do let Git decide. We'll just do all the defaults here. Make it through. I don't want any experimental stuff. And this is where I'd click install. I've already installed it. I'm not going to do it again, but it'll just run through it. And then to make sure that we really did install Git, you can do command line and you can do Git -- version, and it'll show you the Git version. So good. Now we'll go back to VS Code. I'm going to shut it down and restart it again. And by the way, if you chose to not put the icon on your desktop or in your start menu, and now you're looking for how to access it, it should be in your directory in users, and then probably your name, whatever your username is, app data, local programs, Microsoft, VS Code, and then code.exe. And what I ended up doing, because I made that mistake, is I right-clicked and then I said pin to start. Now it's pinned to start, so it would be unpinned to start, but that's why it's reading that. But yeah, just do pin to start and then you'll have access to it. Okay, I'm gonna shut it down, start it up again. And now when I start it up again, I will go to View Command Palette. And if I start typing Git, we see a whole bunch of Git commands. So that's good. VS Code has recognized that we now have Git installed. So what are we going to do with that? Well, we'll go to GitHub, and you can go to this repository. I'll send you a link or put it in the show notes. You can go to this, and this will be the first one that you clone, that you download. So how do we do that? Well, you go to click on code, and then you'll have a couple different options, but you want HTTPS, and then click right there on copied. And then we'll go ahead and do command palette, view command palette. You can also do Control-Shift-P and choose Git clone. If you don't see it, start typing Git clone until you see it. If you click on that, it'll say provide repository URL, Control V to paste in that URL, and hit enter. And then it'll ask you, where on your computer do you want to put these files? Because what we're doing is going out to the internet, getting the master files and pulling them down on our computer so we can work on them. So remember how I created that Git folder right at the C root? Well, that's what we'll do. We'll just click on Git. I'm at C and Git, and I'll just say select repository location. So what it'll do is, the name is CSC250, so it's going to create a folder, CSC250-fall22-first. So I don't have to create that folder. It will create it for me. And then when I go back here, it'll ask me down here, would you like to open the cloned repository or add it to the current workspace? I'm going to say open. So I'm going to click that. And then if I go over here and click on main, if you're not seeing this, you'll want to make sure and click on the Explorer icon up here. If it's collapsed, click on it again to expand it. And you'll see I already wrote some code in there. And if we want to run it, I will go to terminal, new terminal, Python main.py. You notice I named this one main.py. And the output is Kenny Jacobson is majoring in Spanish and will graduate in 1993. Melanie Jacobson is majoring in English, will graduate in 1996. Where does that information come from? Well, there is a directory called students, and I have 2 files, and it's got JSON in there. And so this code is just looking in that folder, and any of those files, it pulls in, loads in the JSON, and prints it out. So that's all we got. So there we go. We downloaded and installed Python, NodeJS, VS Code, and Git. And then we went to GitHub and we cloned our first repository, brought it down onto our computer.